Hello, I'm Katie Freeman with Freeman Furnishings, and in today's video I'm going to walk you through the process of how I created a unique cheese platter out of wood by carving, and then applied a liquid silicone to make a mold in order for me to be able to replicate this platter with resin. From sapling to heirloom, every piece has a story, and it's our job to share that story. Alright, so what kicked this project off for me really was the need to produce quite a few unique pieces in a short amount of time due to a show I had coming up at the end of the month. So I knew it was time to get serious about creating a process where I could reproduce some of my unique pieces of art. But before I get too far into this video, I would really like to thank Gerhardt Industry and their branding irons for the sponsorship of this video. I use Gerhardt Industry brands to make my mark on all of my pieces, and you'll see that later in this video. Alright, so my show was going to be at a wine and cheese shop, and so I said, alright, I'm going to make a cheese tray for the show and be able to create multiples of this one unique piece. So to start with, I used canary wood, which I had laying around the shop. I had a thick enough piece that I could do a serious amount of carving on it. And to carve it, I am using my Milwaukee angle grinder paired with both the coarse and medium King Arthur's Tools Holy Galahad. I like using these attachments on my angle grinder. They allow for a lot of control, and all the Holy Galahads have holes in them so you can see through the blade as you're working, which is really nice because you can see high spots and low spots while you're working. And then there's a little area I put on the tray for putting dips and stuff in it, and to create that kind of divoted area I use the Merlin tool, which is their small grinder, to create that divot, and I also really enjoy using that. To get the final shape and smoothness, I used the Guinevere by King Arthur's Tools with their sanding head on it, and I really enjoy using that tool as well. It's super easy to use. And then to make my mark on my tray, like I put on all of my pieces, I used my Gerhardt Industries electric branding iron to put on the back. I had hoped that perhaps the indent left from the branding iron could transfer through in the mold process, but once I made the decision for the bottom to be the top of the mold, I knew that wasn't going to happen. But I still like making my mark on the original piece. Okay, so for the mold, I knew I was going to be using a two-part silicone pour process, and I didn't want that silicone in its liquid form to seep into the pores of the wood, so I knew I needed to seal it. So first I wet the tray in order to raise the grain, let it dry, did another like 220 sanding on top of it, and then I'm going to apply this sanding sealer before I move on to the next process. So while you're watching me apply the sanding sealer, I just wanted to bring to your attention that if you enjoy watching the videos I produce of my projects, why don't you go ahead and head on over to Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/Freeman Furnishings, and check out how you can be a part of the tribe and get some really cool perks for being a member of my Freeman Furnishings Patreon over there. Alright, but of course, no pressure to do that. You're always welcome to enjoy the videos that get put up on YouTube, whether you're a patron or not. Alright, so once the sanding sealer is on there, I let that dry, and I did do another light 320 sanding. And then I went with a spray enamel, which usually you would put like on metal surfaces, but I put it on there, and with the sanding sealer it worked great. Once it was dry, I am going to use the corrugated plastic, which you can pick up. I picked mine up at Lowe's, but you can pick them up at pretty much any of the big box hardware stores. I really like working with this corrugated plastic. It's easy to cut, as you can see. It's easy to put together. I just use hot glue gun to make my molds. I also use this process for pouring resin tabletops and trays. I've really enjoyed using this. And for any of the products that I use in this video, you can find the affiliate links down below in the description, so you can check out how you can get these parts and see if they're of interest to you. So again, I just measured. I wanted to leave just a little bit of room around the platter, but not a ton, because again, I'm using this 2-part liquid silicone, and this is actually a pretty substantial size. So right here I'm making a mold. The platter itself is 7 inches by 7 inches and approximately 1 3/4 inches tall, and so the mold is 9 inches by 9 inches and 2 inches tall. And that's quite a bit of liquid silicone to pour, even though it will be going around the platter, which will take up a good portion of it. So once I have the mold made, I also use a little bit of glue to glue down the platter so it doesn't move. And then I spray it all with a mold release that I got from the same company. I'm using Smooth On for the liquid silicone and the mold release. So liquid silicone works a lot like any 2-part resin. So you just pour equal amounts of each part A and B of the silicone, mix them well together. It's kind of goopy and sticky. The kind I got is 20T. Again, you'll find that in the description down below. And so it cures super quick. The working time is just 6 minutes and the cure time is 30 minutes. So that's really quite quick when you're trying to get it all poured. So I ended up going through basically 2 boxes of it just to cover it all up. And then I leveled it out so that it would be a level mold when it was all said and done. And you see me just blowing on the top there to get some of the bubbles out. I wasn't really all that worried about bubbles. So after the 30 minutes and it was cured, it was time to demold the mold, if you will. This was a little bit more difficult than I thought it probably should be, but in the end, it came out well. There was no issues. It was just the hot glue and getting through that with the corrugated plastic, really. But I just used my box cutter knife and it was no problem. And you'll see the wood piece popped right out. So I think using the sanding sealer and the spray enamel made that super easy. I didn't have to worry about anything getting stuck in the actual wood grain itself. And then it was time to pour my first resin tray. I was super excited for this process. For the resin, I am using epoxy liquid plastic. I am doing a 2-to-1 ratio, and I went with orange for my first. So I have an orange tint, and then part of it is also an orange metallic mica powder too, all bought from epoxy. And again, the links will be down in the bottom. And then I still have cedar chips from, oh gosh, from a project from like 2 years ago. And sometimes I really enjoy mixing that in with the resin to add some texture to it. So again, what you see facing up is going to be the bottom of the platter. The top of the platter will be the bottom of the resin, if you will. And I just went with a propane torch to pop the bubbles and then let that cure, which was about 48 hours. I let it cure and it popped right out of the mold without any problem. I really like how reproducible this process is. I like it so much, in fact, that I created 2 more molds so that I can continuously process up to 3 molds at a time. And again, I would like to thank Gearhart Industries branding irons for their sponsorship of this video. I really enjoy using their branding irons, and I have a link for you to go check them out down in the description below.